The Fabulous Five at the Overlook Hotel. A winter holiday in a place that really shouldn't be left alone with its faults. The Fabulous Five were simply thrilled when Graham announced they'd be spending a few days in the Colorado mountains. "It sounds smashing," said Lisa. "I hope we can explore," said Liam. "I hope they have chips," said Jimmy. Poppy stretched for an age, then shook herself, as if preparing herself for action. Their friend Danny met them at the door of the Overlook Hotel. He was a quiet boy with a polite smile, and the faint look of someone who had seen more than he ought to. "Welcome," he said. "It's very peaceful here in winter." Poppy stepped inside the foyer, looked slowly around all four corners, then fixed Danny with a long assessing stare, as if she'd just caught him telling only half the truth. Inside, the hotel was enormous. Long corridors, patterned carpets, and a silence that felt like it was listening. "How exciting," said Lisa. "It's like a palace," said Liam. Jimmy immediately asked if the kitchen was open. Danny's mother, Wendy, greeted them warmly. "Oh, it's lovely to have more children around," she said, though her smile had a tired edge. "Jack's been working very hard, and Danny will love the company." Jack appeared with a grin that was a little too tight. "Lovely to have you kids here," he said. "I'm writing a book." Poppy stared at him for a long, unblinking moment. Later that afternoon, the five found Jack hunched over his typewriter, scowling at a blank page. Lisa tilted her head. "Are you stuck?" Jack sighed. "Just a bit. I'm trying to write something important, something big, something that matters." Liam said, "Why not write something else for a bit? Something simple, something fun." Jimmy added, "Sometimes I draw silly pictures when I'm stuck. It helps." Jack blinked at them. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A real laugh, warm and surprised. Wendy looked up from the kitchen doorway, relief softening her face. "Well," Jack said, rubbing his chin, "maybe I could write something light, just to get the gears turning." He sat down again, typed a sentence, then another, then a whole paragraph. The five watched as his shoulders relaxed. "That's it," Wendy whispered. "That's the Jack I remember." That evening, Wendy watched Danny playing happily with the five while Jack scribbled away at his new story. "It's been so long since Danny felt relaxed," she murmured to Graham. "Whatever you're all doing, thank you." That night, Jack wandered the corridors, restless but no longer angry. Poppy followed. Every room he entered, the ballroom, the boiler room, the long echoing corridors, room 237, was perfectly ordinary. Just Poppy, sitting in the middle of each room as if she'd been waiting for him. Jack frowned. "Funny, I thought this place felt different at night." Poppy blinked slowly, then padded ahead to the next room. Jack slept soundly for the first time in months. Poppy curled on his chest, purring like a small furry engine, vibrating away Jack's stress. Wendy woke in the night, saw them, and smiled. The next morning, the hotel's cook, Mr. Halloran, returned from a supply run. "Well now," he said, smiling at the five, "aren't you a bright bunch?" Jimmy stared at him. "You sound just like Hong Kong Phooey." Halloran chuckled. "I get that a lot, kid." He leaned down to Danny. "Hotel's quieter today," he murmured. "Feels like someone opened a window in a stuffy room." Poppy brushed against his leg. Halloran nodded at her with deep respect. "Ah," he said softly, "that explains it." Later that day, Halloran gave the five and Danny a tour of the hotel. Poppy walked ahead, tail high, inspecting each doorway as if checking the place met her standards. She passed the door with some writing scrawled across it in shaky red letters. Poppy paused. She regarded the writing for a heartbeat, then reached up and gave it a single decisive bop with her paw. Halloran let out a low whistle under his breath. "That cat's something else." The children caught up. "Tusk, tusk," said Lisa. "Someone's written graffiti." "At least it's a positive message," Liam added, reading the cheerful "Have fun" written across the door. Later in the kitchen, they passed the walk-in freezer. Halloran slowed, rubbing his sternum absently. "Huh," he murmured. "Feels like a weight's off my chest today." He gave Poppy a thoughtful look. "Reckon I've got you to thank for that." Over the next few days, Jack wrote pages and pages of silly children's stories, inspired by Danny and the five. And every so often, while he was laughing at something Jimmy said, or listening to Lisa describe a mystery she'd read, a brilliant idea for his real novel would pop into his mind. Not forced, not pressured, not haunted, just there. He scribbled notes in a separate notebook, smiling to himself. Wendy watched him with quiet joy. Halloran nodded knowingly. Danny felt the hotel's mood soften, like a storm cloud drifting away. The Overlook sulked. On their last morning, Jack handed Wendy 2 stacks of paper. "One's a children's book," he said, beaming. "The other, I think it might be the start of something good." Wendy hugged him tightly. "What a funny hotel," said Lisa over breakfast. "Very silly," said Liam. Poppy stretched, yawned, and gave Danny a single approving blink. "Let's all have a snowball fight in the maze before we go," Jimmy added, and so they did, and they all laughed until their sides ached. Later, they waved goodbye to the Torrances and to Halloran, boarded their bus and headed home. Jack's serious novel, when it was finally published, enjoyed modest success, but his children's stories, the ones he wrote to get unstuck, made him beloved across the world. Wendy always said it was because he wrote them with joy. Jack always said it was because of 5 bright children and a very determined cat. And in the Overlook Hotel, for reasons no one could quite explain, the winter passed quietly, and no one heard a single whisper in its halls again.